students with disabilities, and what are some of the parent resources that will be provided. Before we get started into that, I just want to share a couple things. One is a norm. It's helpful when we're all getting used to this virtual conversations. It's helpful if you mute your phone or your computer while other people are talking. There will be opportunities to ask questions. So please, you can do those in two formats. You can ask the question in the chat box, or you can ask the question when we pause and you can just unmute yourself. That would be helpful. And then lastly, I just want to let people know that we are recording this, and we're recording this so we can share them. As we have been doing these preview sessions, we want to make sure that when people can't access it right now, that they can check it out later. So we are recording this session, so wanted to share that with everybody. And before we get into EL education, I want to just state a little bit of our why. And our goal with this curriculum adoption is to set our students up for success. And we believe that having a curriculum that is high quality, like EL education and like Eureka Math, is the recipe for that. So I think of this, I love to cook. And so we all have different analogies. And my analogy is cooking. And as a novice cook, as a new cook, I really needed a recipe, and that really helped me understand the chemistry behind cooking and what worked and what didn't work. And I loved actually, there's a cookbook, it's like Cooks Illustrated, which told me the why behind it too. It didn't just have the recipe, it told me the why. Like, why does it work better when you use this cheese for your macaroni and cheese and this cheese for that? And having like a high quality curriculum does that for us, that it provides some guidance and some background, but it also, as teachers, as we become more comfortable with maybe teaching that standard, teaching that skill with our students, that we can find other things that work. And so it creates that foundation, but allows that flexibility as we become comfortable in our work, or I become comfortable making a recipe, I can make an adjustment and still get it taste as good. But I also know that if I make an adjustment and mix an ingredient, that it possibly won't work. And we want to make sure we're setting our students up for success. We have the best ingredients, the most high quality ingredients, and the right recipe for that. And we kind of believe, we do believe that EL education and Eureka Math will help us get there. And so we're excited to share with you a little bit more about what that means for you all as families. So I'm going to turn it over to Ebony Massey, our coordinator for ELA, and she's going to introduce the team that's here to talk about EL education and English language arts.
Thank you, Dr. Neighbors. I'm so excited tonight to have not only our team here, we have Amara Perkins, and I also know that Michelle Gillikin, our RPS reading specialist, will be in attendance tonight. And we have Carrie Lehman. She will be our presenter tonight for EL education, and I'm so excited for our partnership and for this opportunity for our parents to hear about this curriculum. We're going to start with a video that will introduce and kind of kick off from the student standpoint. It's about our skills block, but it's a very nice perspective to hear from our students to begin, or from students to begin with, not ours, but students who have gone through this.
So this is skill blocks, but I know you don't know what it is because you're new, so we'll tell you about it.
It's made for you to learn.
It helps your mind grow. And we have fluency, word work, writing, teacher station, air, like we read, and then we get to move around. Flip it, change it, read or write it, done. It's like another way to learn reading. You get to do games, fun games that helps learning. Sometimes you do packets. The packets help you learn more, because if you don't do the packets, it's like you're going to be a little bumpy on the road. You have assigned jobs, and you have different stations you can go to. So if I come in word work, and I don't know like some of the words, I can't interrupt Miss Moorhead because she's like with another groups. If I need like help, then like I have someone to help me. because like we have question people and like the leader. I like it because it makes me feel like I'm participating. Get feedback from my friends or my group members. I'm not really mad. I'm happy because if I work on it over and over again, I can get better. If they didn't do their best on the break, or like they read choppy a little, then like you could like put this. I think that you need to work on like the not reading choppy, but like if they did good on the accuracy, then you could say that you did great on the accuracy. You need to improve on it, so Miss Moorhead will still teach you how to do it, so you don't have to be that angry. The more you do it, the better you get at it, and the easier it gets. I used to start off so slow and choppy, because I thought that every word that I say is going to be incorrect. Now, I just feel like I'm a fluent reader. I can keep on going and then never stop. Until there's a period, you will stop.
Thanks so much for showing that, Ebony, and good evening, everyone. My name is Carrie Horn-Lehman, and I'm from EL Education. Just like all of you who are here learning as parents, I'm also a parent. I've got a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old who I just set up with some grilled cheese and tater tots so that I could be here with you, and I really appreciate your time. Those were some kiddos who are in one of the schools using our EL Education curriculum, and we made that video featuring them to tell teachers and parents and even students across the country just a little bit of what it looks like to implement the curriculum, what it looks like in the classroom. At EL Education, we are a crew of parents, of educators, and so one of the things that matters to us is learning standards and kids' ability to meet the standards we have for them. But we actually care about a whole lot more than that too. And so this graphic I wanted to share with you with these intertwining circles is a graphic that we use to talk about how our curriculum goes beyond just standards, because in addition to learning, we actually care just as deeply about how kids are going to go about conducting themselves when they're either working alone or when they're working with one another, or when they're facing something that's actually pretty challenging for them. That's a real life skill. And so the curriculum, we embed work to develop the mindsets and skills for success right in with the everyday learning that they're doing in the classroom. And then another bit of this is ethical people. So we want kids who will recognize and stand up for what's right. So we've really focused right through the ELA curriculum on kids discussing and identifying characteristics like empathy, integrity, respect, and compassion. So they're looking for this in the characters they're reading about in books. They're looking for this in one another as they interact, and they're looking to uphold these characteristics themselves as well. This is one of the things, these 3 dimensions of achievement, that set us apart from a lot of other different curricula that's available. Ultimately, what we say is we want to make literate people. We want kids to be ready for whatever comes next when they leave us in school. So every day, as part of their lessons, kids are going to be really building a super deep understanding about a topic and then applying that learning to different reading, writing, and speaking tasks. So kids are powerful, they're capable, they're creative. Every lesson asks students to share their thinking with others. So in the classroom where the curriculum is being implemented, sure, you've got a teacher as an expert, but more so than that, you've got a text that's an expert, and you have kids who are experts as well. Character is important to us. So that can mean a lot of different things to different people. We intentionally integrate character right within the context of the academic lessons. So we say kids need to effectively practice habits of character if they're working together. So these are habits of effective learners. These are being ethical people and people who are really contributing to making a difference in the world. So we have kids practicing and doing these things while they analyze models that they have. They give each other constructive criticism and feedback. They take everything they're learning about and reading about and produce these high quality final products that serve an authentic purpose even beyond the classroom. The high quality work dimension of student achievement is incredibly important to us. We know that when kids finish their formal schooling, they're not really going to be measured anymore by how well they can perform on a test that comes at the end of a year. Actually, what kids are going to be measured on in the real world is the quality of their character and the quality of their work. So this high quality work dimension of student achievement is incredibly important. I mentioned the idea that at the end of every module of learning, kids are creating a final performance task. This goes through the whole process of drafting, collaborating, getting feedback, making revisions, presenting it in multiple formats, which is preparing them for the type of work they're going to ultimately have to do in the real world. One of the ways we go about ensuring that all voices are heard in the classroom is through some structures that are embedded in the lessons. So there are things called protocols. There are things called total participation techniques. And there are also engagement strategies that we write into every single lesson for teachers to use throughout so that every student feels like his or her voice needs to be heard and is valued. So a protocol might have students going through a certain amount of steps where they will think about something. They'll talk to somebody else in the classroom. They capture that thinking in writing, and then they maybe share back with the whole group as a means of elevating every single voice and really breaking that cycle that can sometimes happen in classrooms where there are a few kids who always raise their hands and always answer all the questions, and then many more kids who never really get their thinking to be heard. We believe in celebrating differences and appreciating them, particularly when what kids are bringing to the classroom are a variety of different backgrounds and languages. Another one of the hallmarks of this curriculum, and if you were to do a classroom visit or something, what you might notice is the read, think, talk, write cycle. So we really think that texts hold power. If kids can read, they have access to the world. It's at their fingertips. So for this reason, we actually require that the central text, whatever book it is the kids are reading for a given module, it's in every child's hand. And the district is making the commitment that the children are holding these books in their hands. There's enough copies of this to go around. The lessons revolve around these texts, and every day kids have the chance to read about it, think about it, talk about it, and write about it. So if you're anything like me, when your kids come home, my little one's name is Clint, my 6-year-old, I often say to him, "Hey, what'd you do in school today?" "Oh, I can't remember." Or, "Hey, what'd you guys learn today?" "Oh, I don't know, some stuff." So you can concretely say to your kids, "Hey, what did you read today in ELA? What did you talk about? What did you have to think about? Or what did you write about?" And your children should be able to answer those questions every day. In kindergarten through second grade, kids have to learn how to read. So one of the 2 hours that happens every day in these grades is called our Reading Foundations skills block. And this is a block that uses structured phonics to teach kids how to just crack that alphabetic code. We know in order to become fully literate, kids really must internalize the automatic knowledge of the little building blocks of language. This is written language and spoken language. So kids need to know things like their letter names, the sounds that letters make, the formation of letters, how to break words apart, and then also how to blend them together. All of this happens in a really systematic and structured way in every grade, kindergarten, first, and second, so that by the time kids get to third grade, they are readers. This happens through a combination of whole group and small group instruction, so you can be sure that your kiddos are getting the individualized attention that they really need from their teachers, because in one classroom, there are a lot of different ability levels. This chart here shows you all the topics your kids will be learning about over the course of the school year, so you can find your child's grade level and see that there are 4 modules. These align with the quarters of the school year. And you might notice that there's a little bit of overlap here with some of the science and social studies topics. You might also notice, oh, those are some topics my kids are interested in. Kids really love. We've actually seen them become true experts, especially in the topics where they learn about it in ELA and there's a connection between science and social studies. Spending a whole quarter in a topic means kids are reading a bunch of texts on that topic. They're doing a bunch of writing. They're talking to each other. By the end of that quarter, these kids really are experts, and it's really fun to see. My next slide here shows me if you've got kiddos who are in grade 6, 7, or 8, this is what the topics look like for them. We paid really special attention at these grades and picking topics that would be compelling for kids who are adolescent and early teenagers. We really wanted to represent diverse perspectives and have texts that had diverse characters written by diverse authors. And these topics have all been super engaging for kids at these ages. And then if I could just summarize our approach to teaching and learning, we say we have tremendous respect for teachers and school leaders and the work that's done every day. And we have tremendous respect for families and communities as partners in education. So we actually believe that when learning is active, challenging, meaningful, public, and collaborative, that is when kids can actually do more than they ever thought possible. We think teachers can do more than they think possible as well. So we want kids to become experts to do good. So the lesson plans we have really equip teachers to challenge kids. So they're taking responsibility for their own learning. They're really becoming the leaders in the classroom because they're the ones who ultimately are going to be able to change the world. Now, I will just add, we know from our work in districts across the country, every child has different needs. So some kids are learning English as an additional language. Some have learning disabilities. Some need more support, and some kids actually just need more challenge. So we have some high leverage practices that are built into the curriculum to really address these diverse needs. One of these is vocabulary. We know that kids need to know a lot of words to be successful readers. We also know kids that speak multiple languages have a wealth of vocabulary, and we treat that as a real asset in the classroom. With this asset-based view, we encourage teachers through the lesson plans to use instructional practices that will invite kids to share their vocabulary with one another, to really break words apart and put them together again, and to build really strong foundations in topics, because the more you know about a topic, the more you're familiar with the vocabulary, the more challenging text you're able to read on that topic as well. Another practice that we have in the curriculum is something called a language dive. It's where we really slow down with kids. We take really kind of complex or juicy sentences and spend 15, 20 minutes digging in. We'll put each word on a different piece of paper and have kids move those around and talk about the impact of different words and what would happen if we swapped out this word, and what if they were in a different order? Why would the author do that? These conversations about language equip kids to not only be better readers, but also better writers. And then the last one is conversation cues. So kids have a wealth of vocabulary, like I mentioned before, and kids have often no problem talking to one another when they're at lunch or when they're outside or when they're on the bus. Sometimes in classrooms, they just have a trickier time because it's a certain type of academic language we're asking them to use. So we recognize that and want to give kids support. The curriculum has something called conversation cues, which are like frames, sentence starters. We post these around the classroom. We equip kids with these on their desk so they have the language to really have conversations with one another in the classroom. These are things like we might have a chart that says, I agree with you and, or I disagree with you because, and teachers will be prompting kids to begin or borrow these conversation cues when it helps them have conversations. This is a little peek at some of the resources available as part of the curriculum. We know it's so important for you to be able to support your kids, particularly now. So I'm homeschooling right now, like I know many of you are as well. This role that's quite new for all of us. Our curriculum has something in the supporting materials section that gives overviews for families. So we always want you to know before we start learning about a topic, what it is we're going to be teaching, what are some questions you can ask your kids, what are some activities or ideas, kind of fun things, nothing that's too hard, but what can you do at home to really build and strengthen the connection to what the kids are doing at school. And then the supporting, oh, sorry. I can pause there if anybody has questions. maybe it's just a mic. I will just close things up and then I'll pass it back to you. The last thing that I wanted to say here is that we really believe deeply as an organization that literacy is a civil right. So curriculum for us is this vehicle for equity. We're a nonprofit, EL Education. Our curriculum in its pure, just online form is posted free and open source on our website for anybody, anywhere to access. So our commitment is any child, any zip code, anywhere is entitled to be heavily engaged and highly challenged by what he or she does in school. And that's our commitment and why we do the work that we do. And we're really honored about the possibility of partnering with Richmond Public Schools to support the work that you're doing with kids and teachers. So I could stop there. Ebony, Autumn, sorry, if there's anything you want to jump in with, go ahead.
No, thank you so much. Ebony, there's a couple questions in here, and I've tried to answer some of those, but I didn't know if there was anything that maybe you would want to talk about more in depth.
Well, I do see the last question here from Meredith in terms of the independent reading and the different text types or types of text students will be engaged with. And I do want to say, yes, they will be engaged in multiple types of text, not just books. And there will be time every day pretty much embedded in the lesson or for homework where students will have time for that silent reading. They call it accountable independent reading. And so, or airtime. And so they will have that opportunity. One thing, and someone talked about, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Autumn.
No, go ahead. You're on a roll.
Okay. Oh, and someone had asked about, like, in terms of bridging the gap between kind of the COVID time and now. One thing about ELA, we do know that there will be some gaps that will occur, but with ELA, it is a spiraling curriculum or a course. So really, those topics tend to come up over and over and over again, not just throughout first grade, second grade, fifth grade, fourth grade, for instance, main idea. However, also during the course of the year, those standards spiral back to each other often. And so there will be multiple opportunities for students to engage in a concept, whereas in some other subject areas, it's very specific to a module, and they need that concept before they can move to the other module. That's one of the differences and benefits of this particular curriculum, that those standards come back over and over and over again throughout the course of the year.
I think the only other question that came up, there was a question around this curriculum is 6-8, so this curriculum adoption that we're working toward, and again, this goes to vote with the school board on Monday, June 1st. It is a 6-8 adoption. So for high school, our high school courses will continue with the curriculum that they have been using, and so they'll continue with that. Our goal, though, is that this high-quality curriculum for both ELA and math will help prepare our students in for the rigor that's part of high school work. So I know we have high school principals and teachers that are excited about this. Even though they're not going to be teaching with it, they see the possibilities of what the skills that will be built through this for their future students that they'll be working with in high school. And we do have, I just want to note that our resources are on a website, rvaschools.net/curriculum-adoption, and we're trying to upload that as quickly as we can with recordings and resources and slide decks. So please refer to that if you're looking for a resource that maybe you heard us talk about here. My guess it's going to be there. Do you want to show the video?
I would like to show just a couple minutes if we have the time. I think it's a great
Absolutely.
video. So part of the heart of this curriculum.
Because of the little library, I started reading. One day I was just at the park and I saw like this little book. It said, I'm rocking my new shoes. My shoes are so blue. Then, I just kept on reading books from that point on. I never knew that 5 years later that I would be painting, giving a little library to a whole bunch of kids. You know, I never thought this day would come.
Here in Detroit, we live in the book desert. So we teamed up with all these other kids from all these other schools to do something about it. We have created 4 little libraries. Without literacy, we can't access our human rights.
Our class studied the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
You have the right to be free, the right to get married. Like, if you don't know your rights, other people could just take them away from you.
The literacy gap was actually an opportunity gap. We didn't have access to high quality curriculum. We have 80 K-8 schools adopting a brand new curriculum that really advances student knowledge beyond just the 4 walls of the classroom.
We started with Esperanza Rising, and the students learned about the UDHR. And now they were immersed in it, using the curriculum, but in real life. And they learned about all the different organizations and how they protect human rights. They've done the research. They've actually taught their artists who worked with them about the human rights.
Really, Detroit, all the kids have, you know, like different problems in the world. So I was just representing all the different patterns.
That's my design. Like the boombox for just...
Literacy is one of the main factors for succeeding in life.
Help us build a library with your gently used books.
We all have our equal talents, but we don't have equal access and opportunity to get books.
So we started making these little libraries, and the 4 that we have are part of that effort that you guys are going to put together today.
What is our goal?
850.
How is it going? Are they going in there?
We're getting these books from teachers and from students. Thanks to their help, we'll be able to give some to other kids.
I'm gonna paint my hand, and I'm gonna have different designs on it. Everybody has different personalities. And Mariah, she has a clock, and she's basically saying it's time to read.
54. 225. We have collected 1,000.
All right, I'm just going to stop there, but as you see, when we have literature and text that gets children excited about learning, then they also realize that they have a voice and they have a place in the world. And we think that this is a really important component for this particular curriculum. So they're not just learning to read, they're not just learning to comprehend, but they're also learning the joy of reading and also the importance of being a literate citizen. So I just thought that that was an important video to share, and thank you, Autumn, for allowing us to have the few minutes to do so.
Absolutely. It's really inspiring. And we could talk more about that, probably talk about that for hours, but I know we need to get to math, and we're excited about math as well. Yep. So Samara Booker, our instructional specialist for elementary math, is going to tell us why we're also excited about math, and she's going to introduce our guest from Great Mind.
I'd first like to say that EL curriculum sounds wonderful, especially for our students. But anyway, good evening, everyone. My name is Samara Booker. I am the elementary math specialist for RPS, and our K-12 coordinator for mathematics is Cassandra Bell. She's on a different call. And we also have with us this evening, Linda Terry, our secondary instructional specialist. And we're super excited to have Jessica Trahan from Great Minds with us this evening. Jessica's going to give us a little bit of insight on Eureka Math, the Virginia edition.
Thank you so much, everyone. We are thrilled to be here with you this evening. Autumn, did we... Are we playing that video? I thought we cut that.
We can cut that. We can move on. And if Perfect. You have another video we want to add at the end, I'm happy to do that.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I believe this is the second video, not the first one.
Oh, okay.
It's the parent version.
Oh, perfect. Then let's play away. Just wanted to make sure.
At Great Minds, we believe that every child is capable of greatness. That's why we created Eureka Math, a comprehensive math curriculum that helps children become not only literate, but fluent in mathematics. As a parent, you might notice that Eureka teaches math differently than the way you were taught in school.
Previously, math was taught as a series of tables and rules that we had to memorize. But Eureka goes deeper. It goes into what is behind those tables and rules.
Eureka teaches students to not only learn the process for solving a problem, but to understand why that process works. One way this is accomplished is by following a logical progression from concrete to pictorial to abstract. Eureka introduces mathematical concepts to students using real-world objects or situations. From there, a lesson transitions into using pictures and models, such as 10 frames and number bonds. When students are able to visualize math problems, abstract concepts are much easier to grasp. This ability to make visual connections also helps children to explain their thinking verbally. If your child needs any help, listen to his or her reasoning to see where the problem lies, and be willing to follow the logic on the worksheet, which was written by experienced teachers who studied the most effective curricula around the world. Your child's teacher may send home module tip sheets and homework helpers, guides we've created for every homework page in the curriculum. These guides are also available in our Parent Resource Center.
Eureka makes math something that kids can really enjoy and understand, and they will carry that with them throughout the rest of their lives. We want our kids to have every opportunity to be successful in school, college, career, and life, and having a strong foundation in math will certainly help them get there.
With Eureka Math, your child will learn that math is fun and exciting, and that excitement will help set them up for success, because every child is capable of greatness.
Awesome. Thank you so much for setting us up with that. I do want to start by discussing that, as you may or may not know, Eureka Math was originally written as an OER curriculum. So just as your EL curriculum, we were written as an OER resource to be used across the country with the highest remarks and ratings in third-party reviews such as Ed Reports. We have since had the exciting opportunity to write a Virginia version of Eureka Math. So just want to give the broad how and how we're doing this. We have added new lessons where needed, edited lessons to incorporate new fluencies, and arranged some of those topics. Our writers looked at the year coherently and made really thoughtful choices to meet your SOL standards. So you'll see that embedded throughout the curriculum. Most of our Eureka Math pedagogy will stay the same throughout the curriculum, and I'm going to touch on some of those talking points here. So our mission here, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but before we get too far in, there was a question that I think it's good to address here because we have some people. What is OER? And that it's an open educational resource, meaning a free resource that teachers or anyone can use. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, that's a great question. OER started a few years ago as a trend to ensure that all students across the country had access to high quality curriculum. So here at our organization, we started as a nonprofit, and our mission statement is that every child is capable of greatness. So it's our job to ensure that teachers help their students achieve that. Our curriculum is founded on high expectations for both students and teachers. We found that so often we were going into classrooms and we heard students saying, "I'm not a math person. Math isn't fun. I'm not a math person." Well, unfortunately, we discovered that students were just learning math procedurally. And if you weren't good at memorization, you probably weren't going to be successful at math. So often students were dropping out of high school because they couldn't pass algebra. So then we moved into the tricky era of math where math just became more fun. There was just a lot of games happening. But we said, let's combine all of these components to create a high quality, knowledge-rich curriculum to help all students understand the why behind mathematics. I laughed when Autumn brought up the cooking example at the beginning because we often give this example baking. Anyone can bake brownies off of the back of the Betty Crocker box, following and reading step by step by step by step. But what happens if you have a nonstick pan? What happens if you're in high altitude? What happens if you switch a different type of oil? We don't know. We don't just want to memorize steps, but we want to teach that why behind the mathematics, rather than just following a certain set of steps to solve a problem. So while we do agree that students need to learn these rules and procedures, we also know that that might not be the best tool for all students. In some instances, students need options. They just need more tools in their toolbox. As we support the Virginia instructional shifts, you'll see our curriculum is focused deeply on focus and coherence. You'll see us touch on coherence in a variety of ways. As a K-8 curriculum, you'll see coherence across the grade as well as vertically across all grades. We'll look into usability as well as rigor in the mathematical practices. We also support the mathematical process goals of problem solving, communication, reasoning, connections, and representations. Just as Carrie mentioned with your EL curriculum, we want students discussing mathematics. We want them to become fluent in mathematics. So we're having deep conversations around math, not just our everyday topics. Eureka Math was also written by teachers for teachers. So we know that it's deeply educative for teachers. We didn't just want to provide a textbook and hand it over and say good luck to teachers. We want to embed all that professional development to ensure that teachers have the support that they need. You're going to see us talk about a variety of models. Your kids are going to come home with varieties of models. Now, this allows students to have a couple options. One, voice and choice. But two, it gives them tools in their toolbox to use these models. These models are used cohesively from grades K to 8. So every year they're not learning a new trick or learning a new saying or a new rhyme, but these models are used from year to year to year. And then, of course, real-world application and equity and access, which we'll talk about on our next page, discussing the importance of rigor. Oh, we are not discussing the importance of rigor on the next slide. But with the importance of rigor being, we want to make sure that, as mentioned, we have the equal balance of the procedural, the conceptual understanding, which is really just the why behind the math, and then, of course, the application to real-world scenarios. So first, we're going to dive into the K-5 lesson components. In all of our lessons, you will see 4 components: fluency, application, concept development, and a debrief. Starting with the fluency, we do fluency activities that are fun, engaging, and exciting. We know kids don't want to sit still, especially in those lower grades, for 60 minutes at a time. So we'll have kids doing jumping jacks while counting around the room. All of our fluency activities are in low stakes environments. It reminds me of back when I was in 3rd grade and I learned my multiplication facts. They lined up all the boys on one side, all the girls on the other side, took us to the whiteboard and said, go. That's really stressful for a student. Time tests are really stressful for a student. So we wanted to make these engaging and interactive throughout the whole class. So you'll see these fluency activities that we use for preparation, maintenance, and anticipation. Within each lesson, you'll also see an application problem. Once again, low stakes, not used for a grade, but just to help the teacher identify and allow students to have practice in how to apply their previous day's learning into a real world type of scenario. And then your conceptual development, or the concept development section, is really your meat and potatoes of the lesson. During this time, kids will be working independently in small groups, all together on the floor with the teacher, and they will have their hands on all sorts of manipulatives. So we are really getting into the mathematics at this point. They're applying their skills and then testing that knowledge into new ways and experimenting through that concrete stage. And then lastly, debrief. We know how important it is to have conversation. We want the teacher to engage students into a whole group discussion. Once again, allowing students the opportunity to discuss their mathematic learning. I could explain something as a teacher till I'm blue in the face, and then they might hear another student explain the reasoning behind their answer and say, oh, that makes sense to me. So we want to have those deep conversations at the end of every lesson before completing our exit ticket. In grades 6 to 8, we have a little bit of a different structure, and that we have 4 lesson types. And we really let the content of the lesson drive what type of lesson it's going to be. Problem set will be the majority of your lessons in grades 6 and 7. This is where students and teachers work through examples and complete exercises, developing or reinforcing a concept. Then going back to that same piece about becoming well-spoken students around mathematics, we have Socratic lessons. So the teacher will lead students in a conversation to develop a specific concept or proof. Exploration lessons are going to be really hands-on. It would be like taking that application component from the K-5 lessons and having students work independently or in a small group on a challenging problem. Students love having this opportunity to get together and solve a real-world task. And then modeling. Modeling isn't used very much until grade 8 because it's setting students up for the type of mathematics they'll learn in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. During this, students will practice all or part of the modeling cycle with use in tandem of those real-world applications and mathematical problems. So, how does this all look in access? How does this all look in practice for our equity and access for diverse learners? We wanted to write a curriculum where less students were pulled out of the classroom. So often, the exciting times, the great conversations occur when a support teacher walks in, taps a couple kids on the shoulders, and they're pulled out. So we said, let's write a higher quality tier 1 curriculum so we can keep more kids together and more kids engaged in the classroom. So all of these components you'll see on the screen are built directly into the DNA of our curriculum. First, we have very explicit and systematic instruction. There's going to be box callouts written after the universal design for learning right inside your teacher edition. So it could be examples of different numbers to use. It could be examples of sentence starters to guide those conversations. We often have supports written out and called out explicitly for students with disabilities, ELL students, advanced students, allowing extension opportunities as well. So those are all built directly into the direct instruction throughout your teacher guide. We also do something where we move in our mathematics from the concrete to the pictorial to the abstract. So concrete stage being kids really have their hands on manipulatives. So they're actually taking 10 and making a 10, moving those pieces together, composing and decomposing. Then we move them to the pictorial. We know that it's critical that students be able to represent their work. And then the abstract. Now, does this mean it's a one-way street? No, we want that traffic flowing back and forth. If a student has successfully understood something and they jump right to abstract, that's fine. If students are struggling as they move to the pictorial stage and they want that concrete support with them, that's fine as well. So we want students moving fluidly throughout these stages to ensure that they are using the best tools for them to have an understanding of the concept. I know I touched on those models just a little bit, but you'll see high leverage transferable models. Within all of our parent support tools, we will break down those models for you. What does this number bond mean? What does this chart mean? And what do these words mean that go along with it? But you'll see them from year to year to year. This is one of the best pieces that we get back from parents. They say, I'm so glad I don't have to learn a different model with my 4th grade student as I do my 2nd grade student. It's the same. Obviously, the math is changing, but that model stays consistent. And then, of course, academic vocabulary and discourse. We create a safe environment for conversation around the growth of that mathematic academic vocabulary. So students are able to practice that. We allow opportunities for front-loading vocabulary and to have those conversations into the mathematical words so that students that might not be as high of reading level don't feel left out of mathematic conversations. So in order for us to prepare to teach a lesson, teachers go through a 3-step process. You'll see the ladder example here. So in this ladder, it's really just a metaphor for the teaching sequence. The sequence can not only be seen at a very macro level at the lesson, but it tells an overall story. So we want students to be able to grow from rung to rung to rung, with each rung in the ladder representing the next step in understanding. So the curriculum is layered. We're not just going to say, can students add and subtract within 1,000? October, that was their only chance. Check, we're moving on. First, we'll start adding and subtracting within 10s, 200s, 400s, up to 1,000s. So we will layer that learning so that each student has the opportunity to succeed in each successive ring. And then, of course, for your parent support, we have parent tip sheets, homework helpers, parent roadmaps, and video resources. I believe each of those are outlined in the upcoming slides. Perfect. So your parent tip sheets are available in English and Spanish, grades K to 8. They help parents address the questions. These, I believe, are the ones, we have two sets. We have one set written at the topic level and one set written at the module level. If you're looking at the ones on the module level, that's the big overview. There's probably about 6 to 8 modules per grade. So you'll see those, you'll see that big, broad overview. Then once we dive into the topic level, you could be switching topics every 5 to 10 lessons, which means you're getting tons of additional information sent home, including at-home support strategy, models, key vocabulary, connections to previous learning, and tips for supporting that learning at home. Within our curriculum, we have our Succeed books. Some of this looks a little bit different here, but our Succeed books do include homework mirrored with the homework helper. So every time we're sending homework home, on one page you'll have the homework, and on the next page you'll have the homework helper. All the homework helper is a mirror of that homework, but with different numbers and little thought bubbles above it that would be as if the teacher is working over your shoulder to help you and your student. Just explaining some of those models in more depth. So you'll have one of those for every lesson, grades K to 8. And then our parent roadmaps. Parent roadmaps are available grades K to 7. This explains the topics that students will study throughout the year and really parent-friendly language. So, hey, as a parent, don't keep coming at me with all these standards, these numbers. What are my kids actually learning? So you will see our roadmaps discuss what students are doing this year, what they'll be addressing the next year, and what learning they should have covered in the previous year. So this will help you keep a finger on the pulse with your child's learning. Any questions about the math portion of things?
There are no questions. Oh, hold on. We just got a new one. I was like, there's no questions in the chat. Well, how will the new ELA and math curricula affect the pacing guide for teachers? So as both our partners have shared, you know, they have that curricula, but we have to have that make sense for our context in Richmond. So we will have a curriculum guide, much like what teachers have seen in the past, that paces the curricula for both ELA and math. It incorporates things that maybe there's an assessment time, maybe there's something else that's going on that might affect pacing. It'll also show what standards are being taught for each module or unit. And so it'll make sense of in our context in Virginia and in RPS for the curricula. Other questions? And if people don't want to type in the chat, or maybe they can't because they're calling in, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask a question. Well, if we don't have any other questions, Ebony or Samara, would you like to say anything to, oh, there is a question. Julie, are other schools, I needed to have my wait time, are other schools using, are using this? So first of all, for Eureka, Newport News adopted Eureka last year as their math curriculum. They had about 8 schools that used it this year, and then they're onboarding the rest of the schools this upcoming year. And we have met with them and partnered with them with our extended pilot with Eureka and Richmond Math. For EL, I'm not sure, I don't think we have a district in Virginia that has adopted them, but because EL Education's curriculum is OER, Open Educational Resource, that means people can access that curriculum. And I do know from working in this district and another district that it is a curriculum that teachers use. And both of these have been added to our state department. Virginia Department of Education has created and launched as of February, Virginia Go Open. So it's like a repository where people can put curriculum and lessons, and both Eureka and EL Education has a lot of the curricula there. So so I think maybe that might answer your question. Will other partners like Next Up use these for after school and out of school time for education? I love that question, Meredith, and I'm so glad you asked it. One of the things that makes having a centralized curriculum, it allows for deep collaboration and partnership. So I was just meeting with Ms. Turner from Next Up back in the spring. And this year we just started with some anchor texts for ELA at the middle school level. And she was excited about what are the anchor texts, because we'll try to apply our after school programming to connect to the anchor text. So with a centralized curriculum, we can do that because we have the themes, and you saw the themes earlier in the modules that our after school partners and all the partners that support Richmond can connect to. And so that is really exciting. And I know Meredith, as a partner with Chesapeake Alliance, that is something that will make it easier for you to partner with us. You're already a great partner. Are the lessons scripted for teachers? I feel like the word scripted has now become like nails in a chalkboard, not because it's a bad word, but because there's just a real misconception around that and the idea of that script. And I want to go back to that analogy that I mentioned earlier with the whole idea of a recipe. What Eureka and EL Education, they might say they're vignettes. They are the why. And Jessica alluded to this when she took that recipe analogy a little further for me. And it explains the why behind it and gives some tips and pointers to what could be asked and how can a teacher address that standard or that skill. But they are by no means to be able to be read. We're actually, Dr. Epp, our Chief Academic Officer, I give her credit for saying it's actually bad teaching if we have a teacher that's reading that script. That's almost worse than not having that direction at all and just going off the cuff. We would never want a teacher to be reading a script when teaching. The beauty of teaching, the joy of teaching and learning is knowing your students and bringing that to life. This is a curriculum, but it requires the passion and the knowledge that a teacher has of the students, your children, to really bring this to life. And so we by no means would ever want anyone to follow a script. So I hope that that answers that question. Other questions in the chat? Pacing guides, Virginia using, Next Up, plan for all schools. So for the middle school level, because we're departmentalized, we do plan, if this is adopted, for both English and math teachers to be using the curriculum. For elementary, it's a little trickier because our teachers, some grade levels are departmentalized, so they may adopt both, implement both, I think is the right word. And then we do have, a lot of elementary teachers are teaching all the content areas. So we are working, we've been meeting with principals. We have another meeting with principals tomorrow to look at what our data is, their school data, what their staffing is, and to make the right decision around if this is adopted, what would they be implementing next year, knowing that all schools, if this is adopted, all elementary schools would have both of these curriculum in the next 2 years, K-5. So a school might say, I'm going to do K-5 math, but maybe I'm going to start with K-2 ELA. And so we are engaging in those conversations to make the right choice for schools, so that way we implement this well. Do you have any reason to believe this would not pass the school board? I mean, I think there are some, we hope not. I mean, honestly, we hope not. But, there are some challenges. And I think there's some valid challenges out there that I'm not going to pretend aren't there. I mean, there's a fear of, we don't know what we're doing next year. Like, we don't know if we're coming back virtually or blended or face-to-face. And if we come back face-to-face, and what will that look like? So there is, and as we've engaged and talked with so many teachers, we know, though, having a solid foundation in this curriculum will help support whatever we're in. Because if not, we're going to be finding resources from all over the place. And we don't want to do that for our teachers. We want to give them the best of the best so they can give their students the best of the best. And we know that adopting a curriculum, we believe, will do that. But I think what we're hearing from our teachers is that worry of what next year will look like. And that's stressful, but I think that's stressful for all of us. But that feeling is really valid. Another thing we're hearing is just the flexibility and implementing with what we're saying is implementing with integrity, that we're not going to be implementing fidelity and expect this box is checked and this box is checked and you're doing it perfectly, that we need to implement with a lot of grace especially because the circumstances we're in right now, and that it's the integrity of the curriculum itself and the integrity of what's right for children. And so with, I think, grace and this freedom to make mistakes and to learn together, and the ability to have a foundation that will provide that no matter what happens in the fall, that we can all be on the same page, we are excited that the school board will vote for it, but that will be determined on Monday. If there are no other questions, I would love for Ebony or Samara, if they have anything else they would like to add. I've been doing a lot of talking in this Q&A. I'm sorry.
Autumn, I think that Cassandra joined us. She might have something that she wants to share.
Thanks. Thanks, Samara.
Absolutely.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I apologize for jumping in late. I was in another session and came over. So I did not get to hear any of the questions really, except for the last little piece. Were there any specific questions that you wanted me to address, Autumn?
No, we're just closing up. So I was given an opportunity for both our math and our ELA teams to share any final words.
I just thank you again for all being here. And please, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly, or Ebony or Dr. Neighbor, should you have any questions around curriculum. But again, I thank you all for being here. This is such an exciting time. So we're waiting for Monday so we can get the ball rolling. So thank you all.
I will add here, I'm adding my email address if you have any questions, and if anyone else on the team wants to add theirs, feel free to do that. I'm adding that in the chat. Also, you know, Meredith brought up about the school board. We encourage public comment, whether this is something you support, if this is something you don't support. We want our school board to hear that. So if you want to submit to public comment, that's at speakers@rvaschools.net, and I'll add that in the chat too. So if this is something that, you know, we want to make sure all voices are heard on Monday. And well, then it's getting late and it's almost 7 o'clock. So thank you again for your time and for being here and engaging in this conversation. We will work hard to get this presentation uploaded to our website. And in the meantime, feel free to reach out to us and if you have any other questions. And thank you to EL Education and Eureka and our teams here in curriculum instruction. Good night.